You're trying to find a network switch that will actually stay out of the way, keep your traffic moving, and not eat up your budget before you even get a chance to test it. That hesitation is real. You've probably seen a wall of specs and wondered whether you'll end up with a box that looks great on paper but ends up being a nightmare to manage in a cramped rack. You want something you can plug in, configure quickly, and trust to keep your servers, workstations, and storage devices talking without a hitch. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started looking at 24-port 10 GBE switches for my small Office Plus lab, the first thing I asked myself was, will this unit actually fit in the rack I already have and still leave room for power and cooling? The QNAP L3 Lite 24-port model comes in a 1U form factor, which means it slides into a standard 19-inch rack without taking up extra vertical space. That's a practical win for anyone who's already stacking a few 1U servers or a couple of blade enclosures. The real test, though, is whether the switch can handle a mixed-speed environment without forcing you to upgrade every device to 10 GBE. I set it up in a test rack that already housed a couple of 10 GBE NAS boxes, a few 1 GBE workstations, and an edge router. The first thing I noticed was the ease of wiring. All 24 ports are copper RJ45, so I didn't need to deal with SFP+ modules or fiber termination. That's a hidden convenience for shops that have already invested in Cat6a or Cat7 cabling. The ports accept 5 different speeds: 10 gigabits, 5 gigabits, 2.5 gigabits, 1 gigabit, and even 100 megabits. That means I could connect my older 1 GBE desktop without a separate uplink or a cheap unmanaged switch as a stopgap. The auto-negotiate worked reliably. After a quick reboot, each device settled on the highest common speed, and there were no flapping ports in the logs. Throughput is another place where the numbers matter. The switch advertises a non-blocking 240 gigabits per second total throughput and a 480 gigabits per second switching capacity. In practice, when I ran a series of iPerf streams between two 10 GBE NAS units while simultaneously copying files from a 1 GBE workstation, the switch never showed congestion. The traffic on the 10 GBE uplink stayed well under the 10 gigabit ceiling, and the 1 GBE streams didn't get throttled either. For a small to mid-size environment that runs backups, virtualization storage, and occasional large file transfers, that kind of headroom is the difference between a smooth day and a constantly lagging network. The L3 Lite label can sound vague, but in everyday use it means you get basic routing capabilities without the full complexity of an enterprise router. I was able to assign static IPv4 and IPv6 addresses to VLAN interfaces, set up default gateways, and even configure simple static routes for a separate management VLAN. If your network topology is mostly a flat LAN with a single uplink to a core router, those features are more than enough. They also let you keep a small number of IP addresses on the switch itself, which is handy for remote monitoring or SNMP alerts. One feature that stood out for reliability is MCLAG, multi-chassis link aggregation. In my lab I paired the QNAP switch with a second identical unit using MCLAG, creating a redundant link to my core router. If one switch failed or a cable got unplugged, the other took over without any packet loss. That kind of high availability is usually found in much pricier chassis switches, so seeing it in a 1U unit is a real value add for businesses that can't afford a full-blown data center stack. Now for the trade-offs. The first thing many buyers notice is the price point. It sits higher than a basic unmanaged 24-port gigabit switch, which is expected given the 10 GBE ports and L3 functionality, but it's still cheaper than many modular chassis solutions. If you're only looking to connect a handful of workstations at 1 GBE, the cost might feel excessive. Secondly, there's no power over Ethernet. For environments that need to power IP cameras, VoIP phones, or wireless APs directly from the switch, you'll have to add a separate PO injector or a different switch entirely. That adds both cost and complexity. Another practical consideration is cooling. The 1U chassis relies on the rack's airflow, and the unit can get warm under sustained 10 GBE traffic. In my test rack, I made sure the rear fans of adjacent servers were pulling air through the switch, and the temperature stayed within safe limits. If your rack is densely packed with other heat-generating devices, you might need to budget for extra venting or a dedicated rack mount fan. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's something you should plan for ahead of time. Who should buy this switch? If you run a small to medium business, a co-working space, or a home lab that already has 10 GB storage and needs a reliable way to bring together devices of various speeds, the QNAP 24-port model hits a sweet spot. It's especially useful for anyone who wants basic routing without buying a separate router, and for those who value